Data shows that in the year 2024, which has just passed, an average professional living in a first-tier city received over 200 information pushes daily that required a decision. From what to eat for dinner, to should I click on this breaking news, to whether to accept that seemingly decent freelance offer. Our brains have actually long been in an overloaded state of decision fatigue. What's even more terrifying is that with the comprehensive adoption of generative AI, this supply of information is exploding exponentially. The dilemma we face is no longer having no choice, but having too many choices. So many that even the good choices are enough to completely drown us. That is why today, at this specific point in time, I really want to revisit Derek Sivers' classic little book with you all. Hell Yeah or No? What Has Worth Doing? You might be familiar with the Chinese title of this book, or its literal translation. Either be extremely excited or firmly refuse. At first glance, you might think this is just another bowl of chicken soup teaching you minimalism or decluttering. As a rational person, you might even feel this slogan is a bit too extreme, too idealistic. After all, the adult world isn't that black and white, is it? I used to think so too. But standing here in 2025, looking back and rereading this book, I suddenly realized that what Sievers proposes isn't just a selection technique. It is a survival strategy to preserve oneself amidst the digital flood. In today's episode of Beyond the Book, I want to take this book apart and analyze it thoroughly. We're not just going to talk about how to refuse, but discuss how to reclaim the power of definition over our own lives in a world filled with algorithms and opportunities. I'm Bruce Mee. Welcome to the show. Speaking of Derek Sivers, he is absolutely an outlier in the Silicon Valley venture capital circle. He founded CD Baby, once the largest online distributor of independent music, but he didn't chase an IPO, expansion, or unicorn status like everyone else. Instead, he sold the company at its most profitable moment, donated the money to a charitable trust, and went off to travel the world, write code, and ponder life. He possesses an extremely scarce quality, which I call intellectual independence. He isn't held hostage by mainstream values. This book is actually a collection of his blog posts over the years, and the core argument is shockingly simple. If a decision doesn't make you feel, wow, that would be amazing, I absolutely have to do it, then the answer should be no. Sounds satisfying, right? But in practice, this is almost anti-human. Why anti-human? Because from the perspective of evolutionary psychology, our brains are extremely averse to loss. The concept of loss aversion in behavioral economics tells us that the pain of losing an opportunity is far greater than the pleasure of gaining an equivalent benefit. In ancient times, missing an opportunity might have meant starving to death. But in 2025, missing an opportunity might just mean you didn't watch a movie rated 7.0, or you missed a dinner party that was nothing but social pleasantries. But our primitive brains can't tell the difference between the two. This brings us to the first concept in the book worth digging into. In this era, pretty good is actually the biggest trap. Sivers believes that if we say yes to things that are okay, probably fine, or maybe valuable, we are actually constantly filling up our time slots. When that hell yeah opportunity, the one that could truly change your destiny and make your soul tremble, finally appears, you won't have the time, energy, or bandwidth to take it on. I'd like to ask everyone to think back to your schedule last week. How many things on it were things you were truly starry-eyed and eager to do? And how many were slotted in because you were too embarrassed to refuse, felt it might be useful so I'll save a spot, or thought everyone else is going so I have to go? If the latter makes up the majority, then you are actually in a state I call mediocre busyness worse. You are using tactical diligence to cover up strategic laziness. Speaking of this, we must introduce a deeper perspective. In the AI era, the marginal cost of productivity is almost zero. This means the world will automatically generate and push countless OK projects, OK content, and OK collaboration opportunities right in front of you. If you don't have an extremely strict filtering mechanism, your life will be stuffed full of this mediocre foam. Sivers' hell yeah or no is, in today's context, a high-standard signal filter. It's not just about time management, it's about the asset preservation of your attention. However, I can hear the murmurs in your hearts. Bruce, that's easy for you to say. For most of us, still hustling for mortgages and career promotions, isn't hell yeah too much of a luxury? Can I really tell my boss? This doesn't make me extremely excited, so I refuse. That is a fantastic challenge. It's also exactly what I pondered repeatedly while reading this book. Here is my understanding. Sivers' strategy isn't telling you to quit your job tomorrow or become an irresponsible jerk. It is actually talking about two dimensions: incremental decisions and stock optimization. For those no stock, tasks that must be done, like the job that feeds your family, our goal is to complete them responsibly. But for the increments, we actively choose to add to our lives, like time after work, a new side hustle, or a new social circle. We must enforce extremely rigorous standards. This touches on another core insight of the book: the value of slow thinking. Sivers mentions that he is a person with slow reactions. If you ask him a question to his face or give him a proposal, he usually freezes up or gives a clumsy answer. He used to feel inferior about this, feeling less smart than those who were quick-witted and eloquent. But later, he discovered that this slowness is actually a gift. Because in this era of instant messaging, all tools are forcing us to reply immediately. WeChat pings and you must reply in seconds. Emails arrive and must be handled ASAP. This urgency forces us to use the brain's System 1, that intuitive, emotional system that likes to please others, to make decisions. And in this state, the easiest thing for us to say is the cheap yes. Sure, no problem. Okay, I'll go too. These promises, blurted out, often become debts that we regret endlessly later on. The antidote Sivers offers is very specific and very counterintuitive. Since you react slowly, use that slowness. In fact, even if you react quickly, you should deliberately manufacture artificial latency. He writes in the book, "Do not make promises when your emotions are high, and do not make decisions under pressure. Set a default no for yourself. Unless, and pay attention to this, unless after you have calmed down, you still feel that not doing this thing would be a lifelong regret." This reminds me of a concept in neuroscience called the refractory period of the prefrontal cortex. When we face temptation or pressure, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational planning, often goes offline. Deliberately lengthening the decision-making time is actually just waiting for your reason to come back online. All right, enough theory. Let's get hardcore. If you want to apply the hell yeah or no mindset to your life in 2025, how exactly do you do it? Is it just learning to say no? It's not that simple. Saying no requires capital, and it requires technique. Here, I want to introduce a new perspective: the unbundling of identity. Many times, we do not dare say no, because we equate being busy with being important. If I refuse this project, does it mean I'm not important anymore? If I don't have a gathering this weekend, does it mean I have no friends? Sivers' lifestyle is a complete rebellion against this notion. He tells us that only when you no longer need busyness to prove your value do you truly possess the right to choose. Let's take a specific scenario. Suppose you are a mid-level manager or a freelancer. You receive a collaboration offer. The other party is famous, and the pay is decent, but the work is boring and doesn't match your long-term career plan. According to traditional logic, you'd think, oh, this is an opportunity. It's good to build connections. So you take it. The result? For the next 3 months, you are painfully grinding away at the work. Not only is your delivery quality mediocre, but because it occupied your time, you missed a startup project that would have truly made your blood boil. If you used Sivers' logic, what should you do? First, observe your body's reaction. The moment you hear the offer, is your body tightening and feeling heavy, or is it instantly filled with energy? The body is often more honest than the brain. If the signal from the body is hesitation or heaviness, then it is a no. Second, execute the delayed reply strategy. Don't say yes on the spot. You can say, that sounds very interesting, but I need to look at my schedule. I'll get back to you tomorrow. This 24-hour buffer period is your Zerk's rational firewall. During these 24 hours, you need to ask yourself a brutal question. If I don't do this, what will I lose? If I do this, what will I have to give up? Economics talks about opportunity cost, but in life, we often only see the gains and ignore the costs. In this case, the cost of doing this thing might be the risk of missing your next hell yeah. Of course, I need to throw a little cold water on this. Executing this logic completely carries risks. In the early stages of a career, or when we need to accumulate initial capital, we may indeed need a large number of yeses to navigate through trial and error and find what our hell yeah is. Even Sivers himself only reached his current state after years of trying and accumulating. So, I prefer to view this as a dynamic adjustment dial. Early in your career, or during an exploration phase in a new field, your dial can lean toward open. Say yes more. Collide with opportunities. But once you find that fulcrum, and once your time starts to become scarce, you must brutally turn the dial toward hell yeah or no. The current environment especially requires us to turn this dial a few more clicks toward refuse, because the noise of the external world is just too loud. This week, to prepare for this episode, I conducted a small experiment. I listed all the major decisions I made in the past year, including projects accepted, events attended, and major items purchased. Then I scored each item. If it was something that excited me endlessly at the time, I put a check mark. If I did it just thinking it was okay, I put a cross. The results made me break out in a cold sweat. Those items with a cross, the okay choices, occupied about 60% of my time and energy. Yet this 60% investment ultimately generated returns, whether money or happiness, that accounted for only about 10% of the total. This is the real-life version of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. We are being dragged down by a mass of mediocre decisions. So, as a listener, if you want to do something immediately after hearing this episode, my suggestion isn't to mass message everyone rejecting their requests, but to perform a tiny, surgical cleanup. Action 1. Calendar audit. Open your calendar for next week. Look at those to-do items and use your intuition. Which one excites you? Which one feels heavy? For those optional items that feel heavy, note optional ones. Try canceling one. Just one. Even if it's just an insignificant meeting or a dinner you aren't looking forward to. Feel that sense of freedom from the empty slot. Action 2. Build a good idea landing strip. This is one of Sivers' ultimate moves. when you have a new idea, or want to buy something new, or want to learn a new skill that feels pretty good. Don't act immediately. Write it down and put it on a list. Tell yourself, this is a good idea, but I'm not in a rush to do it now. Look at it again in a month. You'll be surprised to find that the idea that seemed pretty good back then might look completely unappealing now. This is the automatic filtering provided by time. Action 3. Practice the art of saying no. Many people don't say no because they are afraid of offending others. Actually, a sincere refusal without excuses is often more respected than a false promise. You can try saying, "Thank you so much for the invitation, but my current energy must be entirely focused on another important matter, so I cannot participate." This is a template for rejection that is both dignified and firm. Friends, we live in an era of infinite choice, but that doesn't mean we must possess infinite desire. Hell, yeah or no, rather than being about the art of choice, is really about the cultivation of contentment and focus. In this era where even AIs are desperately fighting for computing power, your attention is your most precious computing power. Don't waste it on people and things that make you feel reluctant. Save your life for those moments that make your heart race, those moments that make you feel it's great to be alive. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. It's that simple, and it's that hard. I hope this episode gives you a tiny bit of courage to say no, or at least lets you pause for that extra second the next time you face a pretty good temptation. I'm Bruce Mai, and this is Ways Beyond the Book. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode inspiring, or if you're a typical people pleaser who doesn't know how to refuse, feel free to share your story in the comments, or forward this episode to that friend of yours who is always spinning in circles with busyness. In the next episode, we will turn our gaze to brain science to explore why we are so prone to anxiety, and how to give our brains a true physical massage. The world is noisy. I wish you peaceful choices. See you next time.